Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Professor Sides, and this course is Principles of Microeconomics. This is Chapter 5, Elasticity and its Applications. This segment of the lecture, we're going to talk about the classifications of price elasticity of supply. And again, this is going to mirror the classifications of the price elasticity of demand. We've spoken about this in a previous lecture. We're just going to now flip it and apply those same classifications to the price elasticity of supply. Again, remember that the slope of the supply curve is relative to price elasticity, and remember we talked about how there's a portion of the supply curve that's going to be relatively inelastic, a portion that's going to be unitary elastic or unit elastic, and then another portion of the curve, supply curve, will be elastic. Now, what you will see is that it's usually the reverse. The bottom portion is going to be more elastic than the upper portion, because what you will find is that as you go higher on the supply curve, you will find that because of capacity, the supplier is going to be constrained or limited in how much he or she can supply of their good or services, especially in the short run. Also, rule of thumb, if the curve is flat, that means there's a larger elasticity. We'll see that towards the bottom of a curve. We'll see that it's flatter. And then if the curve, however, is overall steeper, then there's smaller elasticity. So remember, elasticity means that if we are changing the price, then the supplier is sensitive and is more willing or less willing to supply. And then if it's relatively inelastic, that means it doesn't matter what the price is, they're not going to be that sensitive to the change. Now let's apply the 5 different classifications to the supply curve. And what we have here is the first one, which is price inelastic. And basically what this says is that the supply curve, what we'll find is that the supply curve is vertical, which means that no matter what the price is, the supply is going to stay the same. And again, that's where the quantity is 0% change. There's no percent change in quantity supply, even when there are percentage change in price. And anything divided by 0 is 0, meaning that it is perfectly inelastic. There are realistic examples of perfectly inelastic. When you look at venues, whether it's a movie theater or a concert hall or a theater, they have a set number of seats. So no matter what they sell the tickets for the seats, they only have X number of seats. So if we're looking at the Fox Theater or Madison Square Garden or the Omen Arena or the Nokia Center, doesn't matter what the venue is, they have a set number of seats. So if that set number of seats is 1,000, then your quantity will stay at 1,000. And it doesn't matter what price you charge for those tickets, what you're going to find is that they can only sell 1,000 tickets. And that's where you would see a perfectly inelastic, real-world example of perfectly inelastic. We move from perfectly inelastic to inelastic, and when we do so, what we find is that the change in quantity is less than the change in price. That means that our price elasticity of supply, that ratio is going to be less than 1, meaning it's going to be a decimal point. So if you see a decimal point, then again, that means it's inelastic, which means that no matter what the change in price is, we're not going to see much change in quantity. Okay. Our next example is unit elastic. And that is the change in quantity is equal to the change in price, or we'll get a price elasticity of supply equal to 1. So that means that for each unit of change in price, we're going to see an equal unit amount, unit change in quantity. That's 1. Then we move to elastic. Remember, inelastic was steep. Now we're noticing that the supply curve is becoming a little flatter. And what we will find is that a change, let's go back. A change in the quantity is greater than the change in price. So then that means our ratio is going to be greater than 1. Remember in our example in our previous lecture, we had a price elasticity of supply of 2. 2 is greater than 1. That tells us that our product or service is sensitive, is really sensitive to a price change. And we have relatively high sensitivity because that number is greater than 1. And then our final classification is perfectly elastic. And here it doesn't matter what the percentage change is in quantity, the price stays the same. There is no percentage change in price, so we've got infinity. An example of this would be a price ceiling or a price floor. Remember that from chapter 6. If the government comes in and does a price floor or price ceiling, and let's say that they do a price ceiling, and so we can sell our product up to that point. From a seller's standpoint, we're going to sell at the maximum amount possible, and so no matter how much we supply, we're going to get that same one amount, and that would be the closest to it in terms of real world. That would be a farmer selling their wheat or selling their soy or a dairy farmer selling milk. So it wouldn't matter how many containers of milk that they sold. I'm not sure what unit that would be. That would be more than gallons or tons, whatever. But whatever unit of measurement that dairy farmers would sell their milk wouldn't matter because they're only going to get one price for it. Doesn't matter how many bushels of wheat, corn, soy, barley that a farmer would harvest, they're only going to get one price for it. And that's about as close to a real world application we would find for perfectly elastic. This concludes this segment of the lecture. I look forward to speaking to you soon. Have a good one.